Welcome viewers to my channel. I'm Pamela, your health coach. This morning we are going to discuss issues on drug abuse, being that the month of May is a drug awareness month, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning as we go through drug abuse, why people use drugs, and the health repercussions on drugs. Welcome. You are free to participate as we take you along. Thank you very much. First of all, let us start with drug abuse. What is drug abuse? It is the use of illicit or prescription drugs for the purposes that are contrary to what they are meant for. It can also be use of prescription drugs in excess of the prescribed dosage. So one can use a prescription drug but exceeds what the dosage was meant to be. So a substance abuse, on the other hand, is the hazardous use of a psychoactive substance or illicit drug. So in today's world, we find that many of our young people, even the adults, use drugs in a way that is not in a way that affects our lives or our health. And that is why it is very important that we know what drugs are and what repercussions they can cause in our health. So when you want to differentiate between drugs and medicine, we can say that a drug is any chemical compound that can be synthesized in the laboratory, or it can be of plant origin, which can be taken for the purpose of bringing change in the physiological functions of the body. So when you take a drug, it changes your mental or physical state, and this can affect the working of the brain, it can affect your feelings, and it can affect also your behavior and understanding and all other senses. So drugs have stimulating effects and can have the potential for addiction when they are used abusively. On the other hand, drugs can be hallucinogens, drugs can be stimulants, or drugs can also affect the central nervous system. So depending on what one requires or why one uses a drug, then you can find that it can either be used to stimulate the functions of the nervous system so that the person becomes so high and behaves irrationally, and on the other hand, it can also give a person an imaginary state of mind so that you live contrary to what is in the reality. That now you say you are hallucinated. So on the other side also, drugs can be depressant, so that it depresses the functions of the central nervous system, and this cannot be good for you in the long run. On the other hand, when you talk about medicine, medicine is a preparation or a substance that can be prescribed to heal a disease, or it can be prescribed to alleviate some suffering in the body. So as much as they can be good, medicine can be good, but again, if they are used wrongly or if they are abused, then it becomes now dangerous to the body. So when medicine is taken without any clinical problem or any prescription, then it becomes a drug. And sometimes long use or long abuse of drugs of medicine for no apparent reason makes it now become addictive and will affect or can affect one's health in the long run. Drug addiction versus drug dependence. We find that sometimes somebody or an individual can depend so much on a drug that he's not able to perform his duty before he takes a drug. Then now that one we call drug dependence. But remember, somebody can be drug dependent, yet he's not drug addicted. In this case now, a person can be using a drug just when he's about to take a particular work, but without that work, then he doesn't need the drug. For example, a number of doctors feel that when they take a drug of their choice, then they can be able to perform their duties very well. Sometimes even those who work in the farm, you can find that somebody takes a drug so that he can work more and more in the farm. But when the farm work is not there, he doesn't take drug. So that means that in this particular case now, the person is dependent on the drug. For him to perform the work well, he depends on the drug that he uses. But when you talk about a drug addiction, in this case now, one becomes unable to physically or even mentally stop taking a drug, even when he knows very well that this drug is dangerous to the body. He cannot stop. He physically requires the drug. He mentally depends on this drug. So now we talk about addiction, or the person being addicted to the drug. So both drug addiction and drug dependence are actually caused by repeated use of a certain drug or repeated use of a particular drug. So when you talk about a drug addiction, it doesn't just come all of a sudden. It must have been used repeatedly, then somebody now becomes addicted to this particular drug, that even when dangers of that drug are discussed, the person still cannot stop using that drug. So in the long run, the person is ruined health-wise and can only be treated by professionals or through rehabilitation. Let us venture into why people use drugs. Why would somebody use drugs? Why do young people use drugs? Drugs are actually used to enhance physical or cognitive performance. Like I've said before, some people require to use a drug for them to do a lot of shamba work, or even to perform a duty for a longer period of time. Yeah? So some people use drugs to enhance their physical performance. You will find that a person may use a drug so that he can be able to study for longer hours without getting tired. Yeah? So that means in that case now he's using this drug to enhance his cognitive performance. Some also believe that when you use drugs, then they are able to understand or remember much more. So that is one reason why people use drugs. Another reason is some people use drugs to escape the realities of life. Yeah, maybe somebody has undergone a challenging situation, or maybe something is not working well according to his or her expectation. Then now he wants to live. He doesn't want to remember what has occurred. So he's living beyond or away from his reality. Then therefore, this person will depend on drug to forget or to make him live as though nothing has happened, or to escape a certain challenge in life. So they use drugs to minimize feelings of depression. Sometimes drugs can be used to minimize anxiety or even sadness or even anger, depending on what this person is hiding from. So in reality, the challenge is there, but the person is living like though he's running away from the realities of life. So drugs can also be used just to feel fun, or just as a way of enjoying. Especially amongst the young people, you'll find that if somebody is in a group of friends who use drugs, then you'll find that this person is most likely to also venture into the use of drugs, not for any other reason, but just to have fun with friends. Actually, they feel that when you are sober, you don't have fun, which is not actually a reality. So number 4 is that drugs can also be used by some people to gain courage, especially in social gatherings. You'll find that somebody can take drug to approach a fellow whom he could not approach, or she could not approach when he's sober. So then he feels that when he uses drug, then he's more composed. So those are some of the reasons why people use drugs. But in any case, for whatever reason that you are using drugs for, we are here to tell you, or I'm here to tell you, that drug in the long run will affect you health-wise. Allow me also to deviate a bit and discuss on how prescription drugs are abused. Because some people think that when you talk about drug abuse, it's only illicit drugs that you talk about. Today, prescription drugs are being used contrary to what they are meant for. And actually, that now makes them fall under drug abuse, or makes this person be seen to be abusing the drug. So a prescription drug abuse can occur when one uses a prescription drug for recreational purposes. This drug was not meant to be used for leisure or even for recreation, but now the person can go over the counter and buys a similar or this particular drug just to be used for recreational purposes. So in that particular place or in that particular case, we are talking about abuse of prescription drugs. A prescription drug can also be abused when one is taking that drug for a purpose that which it was not meant for. And then again, taking more frequent doses. If you are told maybe a dosage should be 2 tablets 3 times a day, then this person is altering the prescription or the dosage to even go 4 times in a day. Then now you are abusing that prescription drug. So sometimes a person may abuse a prescription drug by taking larger doses. If it is 2 times 3, then the person goes 3 times, even 2. 3 times 2 is different from 2 times 3. So in that case, the person is using larger doses than was prescribed, and so we talk about prescription drug abuse. Prescription drug abuse also can occur when somebody is using somebody else's medication. This medication was meant for somebody, or even a brother, or even a spouse, but you who was not suffering from the same ailment or the same disease, you take that drug and you use it, then you are abusing that prescription drug. Another case where prescription drug can be abused is taking medication to get high. It is prescription drug, yes, but when you take it now to get high, then you are abusing that drug. And some of the commonly abused drugs can include Valium, can include Ambien. Some of them are strong painkillers that actually are used during operations or surgery. And you find that now somebody can buy that drug over the counter and use it contrary to what it is meant. Then we talk about a prescription drug abuse. Hello viewers, let's see now on what are the dangers of abusing prescription drugs. Either you are using somebody else's medication, or you are using medication on high doses, medication beyond what or the days they are prescribed for. Then what dangers are we likely to face? Number one, you'll find that an overdose of a prescription drug can easily lead to death. Mark that, and very important. And secondly, you'll find that as much as you are using or you are abusing the prescription drug, the drugs will affect the function of your brain. And in the long run, you will have brain damage. Remember that when you take a drug, the drug gets into the blood system and it is actually transferred into the brain or transported into the brain, and it affects the brain. So if you continuously abuse this drug, then you may end up with brain damage. Prescription drug also, when you abuse it, it will end, or you'll end up being physically dependent on this drug, so that when you don't take it, you feel like something is really wrong. And until you take this drug is when now you feel you're okay. Then those are some of the dangers of abusing prescription drugs. Prescription drugs also, some of them may interfere with the digestive system, so that you end up having constipation. Remember, some drugs will hinder absorption of water. Some of them also causes the body to release a lot of water through urination. So when the body releases a lot of water, then fecal matter or the digestion of the food material cannot take place the way it is supposed to be. So you end up constipated. In the long run, also again, abuse of prescription drugs will make you have liver problem. You can have liver damage. And finally, it can lead you to addiction. Let us understand what signs can show us that somebody is abusing a drug or somebody is using drug. Remember that before one gets addicted, it must have started one day. So when you talk about drug use, then if you realize that a person is using drug early enough, then you can be able to assist this person. So what are sort of some of the signs that can show you that somebody is using a drug even before the addiction point is reached? Number one, this person, you'll find that a person used to be very neat, but all of a sudden the person neglects, does not have any interest in grooming, neglects himself or herself in terms of even the way, the frequency of changing clothing. Even when the clothes are dirty, the person is still in the dirty clothes. Then you start suspecting that this neglect of appearance, this person might be using drug. Another sign also is lack of motivation and lack of energy. He's not interested in doing anything. He does not have any energy even to perform house chores. Then this person, if he's a teenager, then you may suspect a drug use. So we are talking about these signs so that we are able to assist a person before the addiction point is reached. Because once the person gets addicted, then you may now need a professional, or you may now need this person to be taken on a rehab. So when these signs are seen earlier, then our intervention is first intervention will be very key in assisting this person. Another sign will be red eyes. When you look at the person, the eyes that don't have the appearance that it normally has, then if the eyes are not paining, then why are they red? You start questioning yourself. Yeah. Then amongst the teenagers, you'll find that a person who is using drugs always wants to be isolated, always wants to be in his own environment or her own environment. Why is this child of mine getting isolated? Why is he or she not interacting with others the way he used to or she used to? Then you start asking yourself, could there be a problem? Yeah, because that is actually a sign of drug use. Self-isolation is a sign of drug use. Increased demand for money, even without any proper reason. Why is this child keep on asking me for money? What are you going to use the money for? The explanation is not there. But actually in his mind or her mind, he knows that he's going to use the money to buy drugs. Then you as a parent, you can start questioning a few areas. Why is the demand for money so frequent and so urgent? Because you remember that once a teenager has started using drugs, or even a grown-up has started using drugs, the urge to have more and more will be there. So that is why the demand for money to buy more drug can be seen. A person who is using drugs sometimes craves for food, even at odd hours. If you're used to maybe taking heavy meal at lunchtime, now the person changes, he wants a heavy meal at 10 o'clock, then something can be wrong, or something might seem to be wrong, and we need to check on that. Again, a person using drug, you can easily sense, and this one is actually after some prolonged use of drug, especially the weed. You'll find that there's black discoloration on the fingers and even on the lips. Then you may start suspecting something is not right here. Such people also, they lose concentration, so they are not able to concentrate on a particular work or even a particular issue. After some time, the person loses concentration, then you can suspect there is a sign of drug use. To the young people and even to the grown-up, you'll find that if somebody is using drug, there is an increased sex drive. So in this case, we are talking about if maybe it's even in the case of a spouse, you'll find that the demand for sex is more than normal. This is somebody you've been living with. You know very well that this is not the way he demands sex, or this is not the way she demands sex. So when somebody is using drug, there is an increased sex drive in him or in her. And to some cases, you will find that there is a violent behavior in this particular individual, which is contrary to what or how he used to behave. Then you can sense that there is something amiss. And for somebody who's using drug, again, you'll find that there is a feeling of highness. Even in the way he or she expresses himself, there's some kind of euphoria. We generally say that this person is feeling high. Then those are some of the signs of drug use. Now, when we are able to see these signs, then when we take action earlier, then we are able to assist the person, the loved one, in an earlier stage, at an earlier stage, than just living like we are not seeing the signs. So let us be vigilant for those some of those signs. If you see your son or your daughter most of the time is locked in her room for no apparent reason, then that is kind of a self-isolation. Please interrogate and find more, because many of them will not open up to say that I'm under drug. But recognizing those signs will help us to help our loved ones. Effects of drug and substance abuse. Let us see some of the effects now, the long term and the short term. Let's start with the short term. When somebody uses a drug, you'll find that there is an increase in heart rate, an increase in blood pressure. There is an increase in heart rate and there's an increase in blood pressure. That means that the heart is pumping faster than it should. And then again, this person will be breathing very fast. And continuous use will make this person again to lose. He's not sleeping well. He has problem in sleeping, which in medical term is called insomnia. So when you notice such, then those are the effects of drug abuse. Hallucinations. Somebody can just start making noise for no apparent reason. He's scared. He's anxious, or she's anxious, she's scared. Then those are signs of drug abuse. The person becomes very irritable. Even for no apparent reason, the person is out to fight. Violent behavior. When someone uses drugs again, you'll find that the body sweats, loses water a lot. So there is sweating and panic, and sometimes to some people they may go into seizures, depending on which drug has been used. I want at this particular time to emphasize that drug affects people differently. Some people may use a drug thinking that it will increase their physical performance. Yet on another side, to somebody else, the person uses the same drug and they cannot do anything. An example is weed. The weed can, to some people, when they take weed, they can work and work and work for a long period of time. Yet to some people, when they take the same drug, they are useless. They are rendered actually useless, kabisa. So drugs affect people differently. So even when you talk about the effects of drug abuse, do not think that will behave like the same way the other person is behaving. And then again, when somebody is using drug, the effect of that drug will be that there is an altered sense of time, so that somebody may even wake up in the middle of the night, he's going to bathe, or he decides that now he wants to wash his blanket when this blanket should be used to cover himself because it is night time. So there is altered sense of time, and also the behavior is very irrational. In some cases, drug abuse can lead to death. Let us look at the long-term effects of drug abuse. Drug abuse, especially when you start with cocaine, for example, for those who use cocaine, you'll find that cocaine can lead to serious health problems like bowel decay. When you talk about bowel decay, then you're actually talking about a serious ailment that will affect overall health of the body. Because remember that digestive line actually controls all parts of the body. So when there is a problem in the digestive system, imagine that the whole body system will come crumbling down. So long-term effect of drug abuse, one of them is bowel decay. A person who has also used drug for a long time, drug abuse, can easily have heart attack. There is a sense of loss of smell. So that you can find that somebody is actually seated in a very filthy environment. But the environment is so smelly, but he or she cannot feel the smell. So there is actually loss of sense of smell. Drug abuse can also lead to issues with the lung. The lung will not be able to perform well. So lung diseases can also come or as a result of drug abuse, especially those that are smoked, those that are inhaled. When you look at somebody who has been using drug for a long time, you can actually sense that this person looks like he's malnourished. So drug abuse leads to malnutrition. You look at the body and the body is not healthy, actually. So those are some of the long-term effects of drug abuse. Physical dependence. When you use drug for a long time, you'll actually find that you are now depending on this drug. You cannot do without it. You also can have, in some individuals, they can experience panic attacks. They panic out of no good reason. And you find that this will affect their health in the long run. Many of us today, or many cases today, of those who abuse drugs, especially the young people and even the old people, you'll find that they have continuous thoughts of suicide. Somebody talks about terminating his or her life for no apparent reason. So drug abuse have serious consequences, and that is why we need to campaign and educate and understand the repercussions of using drugs, so that if we can stop them early enough, then the better. Drug abuse also makes people to be very violent. And remember, in the long run, this kind of behavior, or this kind of alterations in behavior, will affect our family members, will drain our family resources. And even when we reach onto the health repercussions, you'll find that this person will use a lot of money in the rehabilitation centers, or even diseases that can take long to heal will catch up with our loved ones. And this is not intended by our Creator, God Himself. Irrational thinking is evident for those who use drugs. And you'll find that, like I had said earlier, you'll find that a person wakes up in the middle of the night, he feels that his blanket or his duvet is dirty, he wants to go and wash it, and after washing, he comes back to use it again. Then you find, or you are able to say that this person has really gone into drugs, and the drug abuse has really affected his thinking. So he's not thinking, or she's not thinking well. Brain damage cannot go unmentioned. Kidney damage and memory loss are some of the long-term effects of drug abuse. Drug abuse, actually, we can term it as slavery. When you become addicted to drugs, you are a slave to the drug. A child of God, remember, God's intention is always to have His children live in freedom. So anything that will enslave you is contrary to God's desire as part of, or as the honor, or our Father. So let us understand that use of drugs will ultimately lead us into being slaves to the drug. And so addiction can happen to anyone. Let us not look at our loved ones who have fallen victims of drug addict as very different from us. Drug abuse or addiction can happen to anyone. And remember, it starts with just a single use. Maybe it was a single day, a single use when people were partying, or a single use because the peers you joined, or a single dose because you are partying. It starts with a single use. So be very vigilant on whom you associate with. Be very vigilant on what your peers do. Be very vigilant on what kind of friends you have. Because remember, the Bible says that bad company interferes with character. So when you associate so much with the drug addict, automatically as a young person, you'll find yourself falling into use of drug. And once you use it one time, you'll find you want to try it a second time, and that is how you develop addiction. So knowing and understanding the causes will help us approach our addicted loved ones with patience and love. and we should be able to care for them so that finally they can be able to get out of addiction and live a healthy life again. So what can we do? What are some of the mitigation measures that we can take to help in drug use and addiction? Number one, we need to understand how drug abuse interferes with our health, which is part of what we are here to do. Educate, have education about drugs and drug use and drug abuse. Today I know if somebody only thought about drug abuse to be use of illicit drugs, we are now able to say that even prescription drugs can sometimes be abused and in the long run can be addictive and can interfere with our health. Another thing, we need to have a stable home environment. Many of our people get into drugs because of depressions that we have out of where we live, our home environment. How do you relate with your spouse? Are you giving your spouse hard time so that, because some people or some of our loved ones fall into drug use, not because they planned to, but because you have a nagging spouse, you have a problematic spouse. Let us also learn to prioritize our health. If we know that this substance or this drug that I'm using will impact on my health negatively, then if my health is my priority, then I should be able to reason with myself, have a monologue with myself and say, to me, I'll not use drug. Then that will also help us. Very important mitigation measure. Have a positive self-image, because some of us use drugs because we think we are inadequate. You feel you are inadequate. So if you cannot have a positive image about yourself, then that can also push you into using drugs to feel or to make you feel high and make you feel now. When you have low self-esteem, then you actually have a negative self-image. You can easily fall into drug use. And another mitigation measure, if you still have dependents under you, then you need to give that parental supervision. Even if they're not your real children, but you are a guardian, have parental supervision. Many of our young people fall into drug use and they finally become addicted, even without those whom they are living with knowing. Yeah, so that is lack of supervision. When you are close with your teenager, when you are close with your loved one, you are able to detect and find any sign of drug use, and you'll be able to assist that person much earlier. Allow me to finish as Christians, as we approach our end, that we need also to share and appreciate what God requires of us. It's the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 7 and line 23. Chapter 7 and line 23. Remember that we were bought at a price. We were bought at a price, and you cannot allow yourself to be a slave to drugs. We should only allow ourselves to be slaves to serve our master, who is God, our creator. So endeavor and let it be your purpose that you don't need to be enslaved by drugs or anybody or anything. In the book of Hebrews 4 verse 15 and 16, I want to encourage you, my brother, my sister, who has used drugs for a long time and is fighting to come out of drug addiction. Jesus still loves you. And in that verse, Jesus sympathizes with us and he knows all our weaknesses. So let us boldly approach the throne of grace and we shall obtain mercy and grace. Do not live like now you have nowhere to run to. God still loves you. God is just waiting for you. And he understands. He knows what you are going through. He knows our suffering. Accept that Christ can have your burden that is so heavy and give you a lighter burden. And in that way, you shall be able to recover from addiction and be a free child of God as was the intention of God. Thank you very much. If you love my channel, please subscribe and let us learn together as we appreciate our health in the way the Lord wants it to be. Thank you very much and welcome.